This year marks the 375th anniversary that our borough's namesake, Jonas Bronk, from Sweden, became the Bronx's first European settler. Here to tell us more about connecting Jonas Bronk and the Bronx to Swedish roots is Brian Anderson. Welcome, sir.
Good morning. Thank you, Christina.
Good morning. So, tell us a little bit about what got you started and interested in Jonas Bronk and his connection to the Bronx.
Well, while a history major here at Lehman College a number of years ago, I discovered that my own ancestry was part Swedish, and I have never pursued that. Genealogy was a growing craze at the time. I kind of jumped on board with both feet, and discovering this particular link, I was rather pleased. And then I heard from Lloyd Oltan at the Bronx County Historical Society that someone had written some kind of a monograph indicating that Bronk, who we thought was either Dutch or Danish, was actually Swedish, and this was genealogical proof. So I ordered documents from Holland, where Bronk had signed his name, and found out conclusively that he was. So we had a kind of a dual track where I was tracing my own Swedish lineage and making my name highlighting this aspect of Jonas Bronk.
That's very interesting that you can that technology has gotten to that point where you can find those records and put the two things together.
Well, it wasn't technology at the time. It was
well, I mean, in terms of like being able to have the access to it, I mean.
That's true. Yeah.
So, what in your discovery of your own roots, what did you also discover about Jonas Bronk?
Well, we come from somewhat the same area of southern Sweden. Our immigration patterns was a little bit different. He made his way to Amsterdam, in Holland. He married a Dutch girl, got on a Dutch ship, and came to what was then a Dutch city.
No wonder we thought he was Dutch.
There you go. And he settled the mainland portion, which, he signed his own deal not only with the Dutch West India Company, but also with the Indian inhabitants at the time, which was a smart move on his part, and we chalk it up to his Swedishness that he did so.
His Swedishness.
And the most we know about Jonas Bronk was the fact, because he died 4 years later at a very early age, but he left a will that indicated quite a huge number of holdings. He could have been the richest man in New Amsterdam at the time, from what we find. And that's what we know about Jonas Bronk. He has no children, he has no descendants, but either his nephew or his cousin, Peter, who was present at the reading of his will, did move upstate and has many descendants in the United States who always thought they were related to Jonas. Bad news is they're not. They are related to the family, but not to Jonas himself.
Oh, not a direct descendant.
Not a direct descendant, precisely.
So then what did you also discover about yourself in your findings?
Well, I discovered where, particularly in Sweden, they came from. I mean, when you're doing genealogy, it's kind of tough to know exactly where you're from. In the old world, because typically by the time you take an interest in it, and I've heard this from many people of a certain age, that all their relatives are deceased. I should have asked them these questions when they were alive.
Right.
Well, they didn't talk about it too much when they were alive because it wasn't always a happy story. So for many of us that are 2 and 3 generations removed, it's quite an effort. It's all about document retrieval, putting pieces together. It's a real Sherlock Holmes story after a while.
Right. So, well, this is the 375th anniversary of Bronx's arrival here in the Bronx. What do we need to know about the Bronx's founder?
Well, as I say, we don't know too much about him. We now know, at least, that he was a Swede. He wasn't Danish. He wasn't Dutch. He was from this country called Sweden. We know exactly where because of documents that he signed when he was in Holland. It indicates the exact town in Sweden that he's from. Now, for about 35 years, I've been putting this all together. I initiated the 350th anniversary 25 long years ago. And since that time, there's been a growing interest in Sweden with the connection. Because Swedes love the fact that they've got a little piece of New York that's named for a fellow countryman. So much so now that they've opened a place called the Jonas Bronk Center in Sweden. It's a beautiful building. We're going to be doing a ribbon cutting there
I think
in August.
We're looking at that now.
There you go. That's right in the town of Sävsjö. That's a tough one to say. But that's the Jonas Bronk Center. I was just there about a month ago. There is a gentleman that is brewing a liqueur called Jonas Bronk Spirit. So I mean,
oh my!
So there's really quite an interest being taken in this man known as Jonas Bronk, and the fact that a large part of New York City is named for this guy. And we realize how unique the Bronx is. We're the only part of New York City that's actually named for a specific person. We're the only borough that has a river that runs through it. It's Bronx River.
That's right.
And we're always confused as to why it's called the Bronx. Because it's named for the river, like the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean.
Right.
The article comes from the fact that it's named after a river, which was in turn named for Jonas Bronk.
Gotcha. So, was there such a craze in Sweden before they realized there was a connection?
Craze?
Yeah, in terms of like the brewing of this particular spirit, or having the Jonas Bronk Center. Was something like that happening before?
No, I have to say, over the last 25 years, I had no indication that there was any interest whatsoever. A former consul general who was based here in New York who was very enthusiastic about the connection, found out from people in this particular province that there was an interest, and told me about it. And they were interested in what were we doing for the 375th anniversary. And I just thought it was a basic inquiry. I had no idea that a fellow of means had actually bought the town hotel, named it the Jonas Bronx Center. This thing was taking on full steam at the time. So it was very encouraging to me that there is now finally this interest in Sweden. But I wouldn't say a craze. No, it's gathering momentum, though.
Are they looking into any more discoveries, trying to find out more about him, or are they just putting his name up on things and trying to bring tourists?
Actually, it's funny you should say that. The town that he's from, the church that he was baptized in the year 1600. Now, keep in mind, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
We don't have anything in New York City that comes close to that in age.
Not really.
The church he was baptized in the year 1600 was already 400 years old.
Oh, my.
Church is still there. There's going to be a service in that church on the day of the ribbon cutting
So
in August,
amazing.
which is amazing. And the interest on the other side is also there's part of his family that never emigrated. So there's part of his family that are still there. Now, granted, it's 10 generations removed. It's at least 375 years later.
Right.
So there are Bronx relatives there that find this interesting. Again, because the capital of the world, New York City, has a part of it that's named for a Swede from their town.
That's right. Is the Bronx doing anything to celebrate this? Have you initiated some sort of celebration?
Certainly. As we did for the 350th anniversary with Borough President Ferrer, Borough President Diaz has also taken on a dual anniversary. It's not only the 375th anniversary of Bronx arrival, but it's also the 100th anniversary of the formation of Bronx County.
Correct.
As a county, and that's also important because for a long time, and the Bronx grew up differently from the rest of New York City. We were actually part of Manhattan, so we're a special stepchild in a way. But now we're standing on our own 2 feet as our own county.
That's right. I think we're still battling over Marble Hill, I believe.
I guess
right?
we are. Yeah.
Amazing. Is there anything else? Anywhere we can go to find out more information about the 350th?
Well, certainly the Borough President has his own website as to what's going on this summer for the anniversary. We're hoping to have the Swedish King perhaps come over and visit Yankee Stadium, so that'll be a big deal that we're working on separately. And in Sweden, we have this event going on, and I think it's jonasbronk.se is the website. You'll probably see on the screen.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for all your information. We have to take a quick break. We'll be right back.